basketball team. And so I grew up knowing that she started as a freshman. She was also part of integrating a predominantly white school. And so she would tell me about some of the struggles that were involved with that. And so I think that always I kind of wanted to make her proud, and I always felt like the bar, she never said that, but I always felt like the bar was going to be starting as a freshman and doing those other things. Although I played softball in high school as well, basketball was my first love. And ironically, one of those things when you've looked at that, something for so long, I did start as a freshman. And one of my most favorite years of all in sports was that freshman year when I was allowed to play on the junior high team and the high school team. I grew up in a small Class B school. And so absolutely loved that year where I was playing basketball 5 to 6 days a week.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah. And, you know, like you said, you just wanted to make her proud, even though she never said it, but you was trying to follow her footsteps. And that's pretty cool. So as I mentioned earlier, you're a Hall of Famer from your alma mater, with such honors as Player of the Week, OIC Scholar Athlete, OIC and District 9 All-Conference teams, and Northwestern Ranger Queen. What amazing accomplishments. How, with basketball classes, possibly campaigning for Ranger Queen, how were you able to juggle all this and keep your GPA up?
Well, it's one of those things that I absolutely loved college, and some of my friends from the Baptist Student Union, they were my sponsoring group for Ranger Queen. Okay. They talked me into it. And ironically, it's the first time that I learned that other people other people can see some things in yourself that you may not see at the time. Right. I never, ever considered myself Queen material at all. And I wouldn't have had the nerve to do it had some of my friends were like, hey, we'll help you with the posters. We'll help you. We'll back you. You can do this. Everybody knows you, but they didn't know me in that realm. And so I don't know. That was a very eye-opening and life-changing time for me as well. So to be voted in by my peers at a PWI meant a whole lot to me. Yeah. So yeah, but I always saw myself just as, you know, a jock, an athlete, a scholar. I did see those things as me, but a queen, I never saw that.
Well, you're a queen, sister, that's for sure. You are amazing. Just, you know, researching and reading your bio, I was like, wow, she is amazing. And that's why I'm so excited that you're our very first guest. Eddie Rogers, you were inducted in the Hall of Fame at Langston in 1998. I believe 9 years after you graduated, or 8 or 9 years, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. How was that moment for you to be honored in that way?
You know, no one really prepares you. It's like when you're excited about it, and I was honored. My family was there to see me inducted, but I was not prepared for the rush of memories as you're getting ready to thank those that have played a part in your induction. I just saw the hours and hours outside playing on a grass court, the excitement when my dad built my first goal. And it was big because he actually had a welder. I had the metal pole, that everything, still had a grass court. But I mean, I looked at all the hours that were spent in the backyard and that had brought me to that point. The sacrifices that my mom and dad had made. We weren't rich by any means. My mom was a school teacher. And, you know, all of that was full circle. And I just felt grateful to God that he allowed me to experience that moment.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, Eddie Rogers, you served 4 years as an athletic director for women's sports and was selected as AD of the Year for Region 6 in 2003. Now, I never knew there could be separate ADs for women and men's sports. Could you elaborate on that for me? I mean, why was it just for women's sport?
So at that point in time, we were at NEI Division I school. And so we split the responsibility. Part of my time, there were 2 years that the other men's
They're being paid for the services. Yeah. Yeah, and I guarantee you, if you went to those players and say, hey fellas, if we play these 2 games, you will get cost of attendance. I guarantee you the decision will be unanimous. Coach, let's play them. Let's play them.
Right.
Because the athletes are actually benefiting from it. But it's a it's a two-edged sword. Even though you're playing those games to help those kids with the cost of attendance, you still put them out there. And AD was right. You still doing it's just doing it another way. You're still doing the exact same thing.
Well, I did answer yes to it when he posed that question, but then I think I came with something out of the field remark behind it, because basically I said, hey, $1,000 versus 100, I'm gonna take the 1,000, but yes, I'm still taking one for the team. I believe it is that. But
Right.
cost of attendance comparable to NIL. It can't. To me, NIL is quick and short term. Cost of attendance is something that could be long term. Wheeler, can you compare and contrast NIL versus cost of attendance, or is cost of attendance something that should be looked at more of doing it? Because Coach Banks, the director of Southern, he came on the show and talked about that's what Southern's trying to do for their student athletes.
I think cost of attendance has the ability to affect everyone, whereas NIL is going to affect only those players that are popular, that are marketable themselves, like starting quarterback, starting running back, your star receiver, or something like that. But cost of attendance has an opportunity to affect everyone, and so that's why the cost of attendance to me outweighs anything that NIL can bring to the table. Plus the fact that NIL is not, how can I put it, the longevity factor in terms of NIL is not there, as opposed to the longevity factor in terms of the potential of cost of attendance. So, you're able, in my opinion, you're able to cover more ground if you're able to do cost of attendance than you are NIL, which only concerns itself with a certain number, a limited number of players, that sort of thing.
Yeah, because that's interesting, because you mentioned quarterbacks and they're getting those deals, their name recognition, but without those big guys up front.
Yeah, I mean
what about O linemen, D linemen?
And these guys are only human. These guys are only human. And at what point in time does that doubt or whatever, jealousy or whatever it is you want to call it, kind of creep in? Here my jersey's getting dirty, and I'm keeping folk up off this guy, and he ain't even buy me a burger last week. So.
Yeah. I love my HBCU. And boy, I love it, love it. I love it, love it. I love my HBCU. And man, I hope my team they won. Yeah. I hope my team they won. Yeah. Man, I hope my team they won. I hope my team they won. Yeah. I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see if my team won or lost. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, keep tab. I'ma do the dab, yeah. Dr. Cavil, he know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with this hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won or lost, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. It looks like Mike is back on assignment. So we're gonna let him get it in. With that being said, we'll check on him, make sure it's all is good. Some of you all may be checking out, going, if you have 2 screens on, keep your volume up here and just watch your screen as HBCU Go Sports is In between the CIAA games, they have Claflin at Winston-Salem State. That's third quarter for the women's game. Winston-Salem State is leading Claflin 54-23 as that game is going on there. We might have a special in the mix if we can get Gaither on in between the two games to kind of give us some insight of what's going on, because this is our mid-major day as we get into the mid-major poll rankings. But we'll have plenty of time, a lot of show left, a lot of information we'll get into. But we'll start it out as we do. Welcome to episode 364 inside the HBCU Sports Lab radio show and podcast, the show that's covering the sporting HBCU dash for all things HBCU sports for institutions large and small, from the NAIA to the NCAA. We share insights and information on the HBCU sports culture and HBCU athletic aesthetics to facilitate the story of HBCU athletic programs and, more importantly, the business of HBCU sports. We simply call it around here HBCU sports pedagogy. I'm your host, Kenyatta Cavil, along with my co-host Mike Washington, as I said, out on assignment. So Charles Bishop and I are going to bring you the latest and greatest. We're filming from our home studios and sending a signal live to KCOH 1230 AM studios with the Texas Radio Hall of Famer Ralph Cooper in a beautiful home at Texas Southern University from Houston, Texas. Today's episode of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab is sponsored by THG Agency. THG Agency is a company that provides sporting, educational consulting, and data analytics. With that being said, let me go to you, Charles. I still like that you have the book pictured right there, strategically front-facing. I like what that looks like. But with that being said, what's some of the news that you want to let us know about today?
Sure thing. And unfortunately, we're going to start off on a somber note today, Dr. Cavil. As former Morgan State Athletic Director, Floyd Kerr passes away at the age of 76. And this is a statement from Morgan State University Bears Athletics and the extended Morgan community all mourn the loss of former Director of Athletics Floyd Kerr, who passed away this past Saturday, February 4th. Floyd Kerr was 76 years old. Of course, he served as university's athletic director from 2005 to 2016, where he oversaw a highly competitive program at Morgan, spanning 15 varsity sports and more than 280 student athletes. During his tenure, Morgan's men's basketball racked up 3 league championships, finishing atop of regular season standings, and eventually proceeded to win the MEAC championships. And in 2014, the Bears football team reclaimed its first MEAC title in 35 years under the co-championship nod during the memorable return to greatness season. Of course, for many of us here in the Southwestern Athletic Conference territory, we knew Floyd Kerr from his time as the athletic director at Southern University, where he helped guide the Jaguars through stadium renovations at Mumford, as well as numerous NCAA academic reforms from 2000 to 2005. He also was vital to Southern's athletics fundraising, helping implement the first Jagathon. So definitely want to start off in memoriam with regards to Floyd Kerr.
Let's take a moment of silence. Before we do that, I had a chance to really get to talk, know, grow, and learn under Floyd Kerr as we worked on a couple of projects that he was trying to get done over the years, and he certainly would share great information that kind of gave me some of my groundswell of understanding the nature of the leadership and administrative aspect of HBCUs, both in the SWAC and the MEAC, as you talked about, at the Division I FCS level. So it was significant to have that time with him. Brilliant and bright man in terms of that. And you see it reflected in his ability to garner championships at both those institutions that you last talked about that happen to be HBCUs. With that said, let's take a moment of silence on behalf of the family and HBCU programs to celebrate Floyd Kerr. With that said, we're going to stay in that general DMV area, Virginia State, 2020-23 football schedule announced. I happen to also be familiar with the head coach there, Dr. Henry Frazier, the third time here at Prairie View, leading us to a championship, conference championship at that time. Was significant and got a chance to really get the insight on the football administrative side. So it's just weird how life plays these things on you and how they sync up. And this was not necessarily planned, but As we all know, sometimes the best things are not those things that we directly plan. Let's get into it. Virginia State 2023, we talked about and heard about the new sports programs they're doing, but more traditionally, the football program, they announced the schedule there. Starting out, Virginia State kicks off 2023 season. The road faces Little State, as they like to call it around that, the Spartans of Norfolk State University. And those folks are familiar with the CIAA, VSU, Virginia State is the founding school, while Virginia State comes much later, even though Norfolk State operates at the Division I FCS level, VSU at the Division II level. It's good that they, early on in their schedule, make sure everybody knows what they think of Norfolk State. So that's not me. That's what Virginia State, VSU, has listed out. September 9th, the Trojans will host their season opener against the Pioneers of Tuscaloosa. Should be a solid game there, chance to make a statement in non-conference play. Then they follow up in Raleigh, North Carolina against St. Augustine. Then they land Troy on September 23rd and take on Blue Bears of Livingston. The conference opener is set for 6 p.m. at Rogers Stadium. 2 weeks on the road action will have them traveling to Shaw University, Bowie State University. It's a very solid program schedule. Then a couple of weeks as they get on to it against Vikings of Elizabeth City State on 21st. And then on October 28th, they have what they call the Senior Day action, where they take on Lincoln University Lions. Both matchups are set for 2 p.m. In terms of this early season. Rounding out the regular season, Virginia State will travel I-95 to face that longtime rivals of Panthers of Virginia University that won the CIAA last year for 108. Check that out. Over 100 years of football action will take place between these two rivals, as it is the 108th football matchup set for November 4th, CIAA football championship, which lets you know that's what their goals are, would be November 11th, and then you have the playoffs starting November 18th as they plan to stretch it all out. So good stuff. What do you talks about that schedule? CIAA, that Northern Division, has been fierce for the last decade. Obviously, it's been ruled by Bowie State. Last year, we seen Virginia put their foot in there, and before Bowie State kind of took off, it was the land of Troy, Virginia State. So it looks like they're trying to take their rightfully place, at least as they believe, to get back in the top part of the Northern Division, where a great deal of action is in the depth, so much in terms of them dominating their championship play against the Southern Division. South Division, as they like to say in those parts. What are your thoughts?
Well, we know doesn't take Henry Fraser long. We know him as a program builder, and of course, with regards to Virginia State, for them to scratch back into the top there of the Northern Division, they had that Virginia Union to try to go through last year. No more Jada Byers here at Virginia Union. So we'll see what Virginia State can do going forward. But impressive looking schedule, and with regards to the North, the two teams that jump out for me, Bowie State and of course Virginia Union, in terms of those teams on the schedule. So we'll see how that goes forward with the Trojans and see can they claw their way back to the championship game.
I like that. Claw their way back, or will they wield the mighty sword?
Wield the mighty sword. I like that.
It chopped down.
Yeah.
Those invaders. With that being said, what other news do you want to share?
Yeah, let's take a look at the SWAC players of the week. We'll start on the women's side of the ball, as the SWAC has tabbed Jackson State's Daphne White and Florida A&M's Mighty Oriomi for the SWAC Women's Basketball Weekly Honors for their outstanding performances this past week. White posted back-to-back impressive outings this past week of competition as the Lady Tigers went 2-0 with wins over Mississippi Valley State in all forms respectively. She averaged a league-leading 21 points per game to go along with 10.5 rebounds. Cavil. White shot 73% from the field and also contributed 2 blocks. Oriomi led the Rattlers. She was the impact player of the week. She led the Rattlers with 16.7 rebounds and 2 steals during the Rattlers contest at Prairie View on this past Monday, as well as Texas Southern. She tallied 16 points, 4 assists, and added 2 steals during Florida A&M's road win over Texas Southern this past Saturday. So for the week, she averaged 16 points per game and 2.5 assists, as well as 2 steals per game. So those are your women's basketball weekly honors there, as they
honored Daphne White and Miss Oriana.
Yeah, great accolades for all those that were honored this week. You obviously have a Jackson State player that just continues to dominate. I got a chance on HBCU Nightly to talk a little bit about Jackson State. You know, after they lost to Prairie View, they won 7 straight. Of those 7 games, the margin of victory has been just under 18, 17.8, wow. I think it was. Have 4 20-plus victories, and the last one they just said, well, let's do some more damage. They had a 35-point victory. So they are rolling as they have gotten in conference play, and they are making a statement. So it'll be interesting to follow in terms of what that looks like. Back to a little bit of football as we talk about the schedule. Got my Big Ben HBCU Football Award. We'll be announcing that soon. So I wanted to kind of represent and get people excited and tease it out. We will be announcing the Big Ben Awards to let you know what that looks like in terms of the finalists and then who comes away with award. Shouldn't be much surprising to anybody in terms of what is looking like in terms of who will ultimately win it. But the finalists may catch your interest in terms of who's up to the race in terms of that. Remember, the award is connected in terms of the state of Texas, honoring Big Ben, great uncle of mine that played in the SWAC at Wiley College in the 1920s, the first decade that the SWAC kicked off its great illustrious history that has left a legacy of over 100 years, which is amazing when we talk about the length and lifespan of this great conference. With that being said, it is connected again with the state of Texas, HBCU player that was either born in the state of Texas or played its football with a team from the state of Texas that calls home. So just wanted to give a little shout out and look forward to that. With that being said, I'm gonna kick it back to you and go back and see what some other news that you want to talk about.
Yeah, we'll turn it back to basketball. We'll take a look at the SWAC men's basketball weekly honors. The Southwestern Athletic Conference has tabbed Texas Southern's John Walker III and Mississippi Valley State's Terry Collins for SWAC men's basketball weekly honors for their outstanding performance. Let's take a look at John Walker III, who averaged 23.5 points per game this past week. Competition for Texas Southern. He shot 68% from the field, 17 of 25, and was 12 of 16 from the free throw line during Texas Southern's 2 games this past week. Walker also averaged 4 rebounds per game to go with 2 assists and 1 steal. Impact Player of the Week was Terry Collins. He was a key contributor for Mississippi Valley State this past week of competition as Valley captured a key conference road win over Jackson State this past Saturday. For the week, he averaged 23 points per game while also contributing 6.5 rebounds per game. For the week, Collins shot 59% from beyond the arc while averaging 3 assists per game. So those were your men's Player of the Week and Impact Players of the Week for the SWAC.
Good stuff, good stuff. Let me give a shout out to some of the lab listeners that's joined us for the show today. Theron Waters representing Bethune-Cookman University, Hale Wildcats. I like that. Mary Allen, HBCU Land, Carol Keeler. Good evening, Lab PV in the house, in the building. Emma Price, Ricky Burtonch in here checking us out. Christopher White, shout out to Christopher White. Silas Edward McMorris, good evening, everyone. He has the purple and gold hearts there, letting know his thoughts on the day. Chuck Hunt, Wendy Jenkins Bishop is making sure that she supports us and sending us love. Brandon King, represent Tennessee State. Tennessee State must have won a couple of basketball games. Shout out to Brandon King. I see Tennessee State is back in the basketball business this season. Big weekend for them, man. They got some big matchups. They have a chance where they played the number 2 team currently in the standings, and then that's Thursday, and then on Saturday they face off with the number 3 team. So they get a chance maybe to mix things up, make a statement. And then the number 1 team and the number 2 team play each other as well. So it'll be interesting to see what comes out of the OVC after this week. Will Tennessee get a chance to really kind of make the next step to see if they're going to be a serious player towards the end of the season in the OVC? Shout out to Brandon King. Good evening, Professor and HBCU family. No doubt about it. Virginia State is about to start winning championships with Coach Frazier. I wouldn't doubt it, McMorris. I agree with you. I've seen that action before. G. Boone Holly ending the week in the lab. I like it. I appreciate it. Let me go in this direction before we go to this first break. Lincoln, Missouri. We talked about them last week, right? As they had made a conference move. Great Lakes Valley Conference as all conference, full-time membership. As they did that, they also are reviving their baseball program after they joined the Great Lakes Valley Conference, if you would, as full members. I should not just necessarily rejoin, but restarting the program. Statement for the president, Dr. John Mosley, president of Lincoln University, quote is saying, "This is a significant day for the future of Lincoln University," end quote. This puts us in a position athletically where we level the playing field by realigning ourselves with other similar size and similar physical commitments. This will also give us the opportunity to compete, recruit in the areas where Lincoln already has a large alumni base. Quote, also, for me personally, bringing baseball back is special. It's a sport that had a lot of history here at Lincoln, so I'm excited about its return. Soccer is a growing sport and will give us a chance to have an international presence. The baseball program started in 1970 will return in Lincoln after being discontinued following the 2016 season. The team will play in its home games at the Vivian Field, the home of Jefferson City Renegades, a member of the Mink Collegiate Baseball League. Lincoln Blue Tigers currently compete in Division II and have been a member of the Mid-American Intercollegiate Athletic Association since 2010. A statement from Dr. Kevin Wilson, LU Vice President for Advancement Athletics and Campus Recreation. Quote, Commissioner Namovic, his stellar team and the evaluation committee were overwhelming and encouraging throughout the entire process, end quote, said Dr. Kevin Wilson. On behalf of our dedicated student athletes, faculty, staff, alumni, and administration, we're humbled to become the 15th member of such a competitive conference. Our shared values and mission truly result in a made in the Midwest. We look forward to all of our athletic programs calling GLVC home in 2024. So we've seen this a little bit. So I wanted to ask you a little bit of your thoughts on this. We've seen this more at the Division II level and NIA level, where you see these institutions, particularly HBCUs, adding sports. We've seen it baseball, seen some lacrosse, women's soccer, men's soccer to some degree, gymnastics even. What are your thoughts in terms of the thoughts that were shared here, particularly baseball, Lincoln University, and just overall in regards to seeing these HBCUs restart or start these new programs in areas of sport that may not, at least recently, been what you've seen at the Division II level for HBCUs? Because over 5 years ago, we've seen baseball programs that were closing. Now you see some coming back. You see, obviously, these other sports that have not been connected with HBCUs. What are your thoughts on the momentum that I see taking place at HBCUs, particularly at the Division II NAIA?
Well, that's exactly what it is. It's momentum. And what catches me is it's significant anytime you restart a program, but you see a future. You see a future in terms of the development of the sport on your campus. That's the thing that, you know, from a strategic standpoint, you see this a continuum of keeping this sport around. So I think that's significant, especially in regards to sports that you might not immediately think of. We mentioned gymnastics there at FIST, but especially baseball. Baseball near and dear to my heart. Anytime you can get that program back up and going, and you can recruit and find players to come to the program. Of course, Lincoln is on a hotbed of great baseball action there within that state. So hopefully it is something that you take a look at with regards to not only them starting that program, but it having that continuum that you would love to see in regards to getting kids to come there and play this magnificent game that I call baseball.
Well said. With that, this is Dr. Bill inside the HBCU Sports Lab. We'll go to our first break, come back on the other side, release the mid-major poll rankings on the women's side, and see what your thoughts, see what Charles says is going on, see if there's any changes this week in the mid-major. Week number 5, let you know what's going on at the mid-major level. We'll be right back after this break. As we say that, going into the fourth quarter with 9 minutes, just over 9 minutes left, Salem State is leading in Claflin 61-31. Another one of those 30-point blowouts that we saw this past week. You know, on Monday, at least one team had. We'll talk about that later. We'll be right back after this break.
Q Time is our classic Atlanta soul food restaurant located in the historic West End. Q Time Soul Food is a family business started by Fred and Christine Crenshaw. Come on in, relax, and sink your chops into our tantalizing, mouth-watering, distinctive soul food with a twist, the Q Time way. 1120 Ralph David Abernathy Boulevard or call your order in at 404-758-2881. Do you miss your mama's cooking? Then come on down to Q Time, an Urban Passport member.
The Cavil Group is a Florida-based marketing and training consulting firm. We help businesses communicate to their target audience and engage them in conversation. We also help to expand their audiences, which will ultimately result in growth for those organizations. In addition to being a certified constant contact specialist, my colleagues and I are also certified in John Maxwell Leadership Principles. We use these proven principles to conduct workshops, training, and private coaching sessions for individuals and companies looking to take things to the next level. Contact us to schedule a free consultation. Issues today, don't delay, call Cavil.
From novice to aficionado, find yourself here. High quality cigars plus personal customer service. Slow Burn is Waco's only mobile cigar lounge, featuring a meticulous, curated collection of premium cigars. Visit our website, www.slowburnwaco.com. That's www.slowburnwaco.com.
Press the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna law, yeah, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Charles, we're going to get into the mid-major rankings. Chivalry's not done so dead, so we're going to start with the women's ranking. In week number 5, I want to see what your thoughts are in terms of what's going on here. We're going to start with those teams receiving some votes. Savannah State Tigers sit at 14-6, 10-5. That's 10 points. Miles Bears also receiving votes, sitting at 14-6, 10-5. They have 9 points. Florida Memorial Lions sit at 14-5, 8-3. That's 6 points. That's the SIAC, and team at the NIA level. We did have a team that dropped out of this week. That team that's receiving votes in terms of what that looks like. Florida Memorial Lions sit at 14-5, 8-3. We'll get into that. Let's get into the top 5 of those teams moving out and moving around. At number 5, we have none other than Florida Memorial sitting at 15-7, 9-3. They were not ranked as they jump into the poll rankings this week. As they continue to march down the street, Florida Memorial played some good basketball, got some big wins. They continue to get things done in a lot of ways. We'll see what that looks like as they continue. And number 4, as we move on, we have Russ Bears. They fell from number 2. They were 16-4, 9-1, 35 points. Had a tough weekend. They had the game against Philander Smith. Philander Smith was coming in there. It was at Russ, but Philander Smith got the upset in some people's eyes, which caused the Russ Bearcats out of the NAIA Gulf Coast Athletic Conference to drop 2 spots, bringing us to number 3. At number 3, we have West Virginia State. Yellow Jackets continue to roll. They stay at number 3, 17-4, 12-4. They split 1 win and a loss this weekend. So you see they were able to head steady as things continue to roll and move forward. With that being said, let's go into number 2 as we continue to move up the rankings this week. Fayetteville State Broncos, 14-6, 10-2, had a great week in the CIAA where it's always tough. They move up 2 spots to get it done and just kind of to continue to move up the rankings, bringing us to number 1. Shouldn't be a surprise to anybody as they just continue to play good basketball, dominated on a precedented winning streak. They improved to 19-3 this past weekend. They're 16-0, undefeated in conference play. You had 2 of them. Russ was previously undefeated until they ran into that buzzsaw of Philander Smith. But all the kudos go to Golden Tigers of Tuskegee. The Golden Tigers are number 1 in this week ranking, week number 5. They have 60 points, all 6 first-place votes. As they're getting it done, what are your thoughts in terms of the poll rankings in week number 5, Charles?
No problem with number 1 with Tuskegee. They're playing probably the best basketball right now. But it's 4 and 5 that I'm kind of taking a look at. Russ. Well, it was a week of upsets. Russ getting upset with Atlanta Smith. I understand them dropping, but it was 5 that I really paying attention to with regards to Florida Memorial and Lincoln, Pennsylvania. They both kind of have identical records. So the question becomes for me is the stronger team. Who is the stronger team, Florida Memorial or Lincoln? Both similar records. How significant was Lincoln's loss by double digits this past week when they were atop the CIAA North? So that was my only bit of contention there. But that was a significant shocker because they had won like 10 in a row, and then all of a sudden you have this clunker where they couldn't throw the ball into the ocean, and they lost by double digits this past week to Elizabeth City. So that was the only curious one that I was kind of taking a look at this past week.
Well, that happens when you get those kind of losses. They put you in trouble, especially when you talk about a top 5 and you're putting NIA and NCAA Division II in there. It makes it much more competitive.
Yeah.
So it gives you a lot of strength. And right now, I give you a lot of credit to Tuskegee being able to stay at number 1 because there's a lot of teams fighting in there. And those teams that are in that top 5 and keep it rolling, incredible work in terms of what goes on there. So it's interesting. Let me ask you this when you talk about the women's rankings polls at the NIA level, NCAA Division II. What have you seen just in general in terms of the basketball being played within the women's? And before you do that, let me give you an update here. Winston-Salem State is really taking it to Claflin, Charles, 74-41. 4 minutes left here. So one of those statement games for Winston-Salem State. As the fans are out there in the mix, the little bandbox you talking about, they getting into it and having some fun. But back to the question, what are your thoughts and what you've seen at the Division II level in NIA? Do you give a leg to maybe the NIA this year over Division II or not?
I think you probably can make a strong argument with regards to NAIA over Division II. Although I had an opportunity to look at Tuskegee up close, tremendous basketball team. They play tremendous defense and they rebound. I always take a look at second chance points. So Tuskegee, they are one of the tops in the SIAC with regards to going up, getting offensive rebounds, and keeping possessions alive. But you can make an argument, especially looking at the polls, and I've commented on the past 2-3 weeks where we got some NAIA teams sitting in front of CIAA teams. So that was always kind of curious to me with regards to the strength of a Russ Bearcats or taking a look at the strength of a Florida Memorial. So it's been you can make an argument this year the NAIA teams are a little stronger than especially the teams in the CIAA North and South.
Good points. Great points, actually. Let's take this halftime break, if you would. We'll come back on the other side, get into the men's poll rankings, give you some thoughts in terms of what's going on the men's side as well. As we do that, we have Wendell Davis joining us. Brother Davis is jumping in the house. McMorris says Virginia State, as he talked about, pushing forward. And so a lot of good dialogue going on in the mix here. Stick with us. We'll be right back after this second break.
2002, Empowerment Resources, Inc., a nonprofit organization, has empowered more than 1,500 youth and adults in Duval and surrounding counties through its programs Journey into Womanhood, Girls Mentoring, Life Skills for Teens, and Parenting Education Coaching. To get involved with programs, volunteer, or donate, visit www.empowermentresourcesinc.org. Follow us on social media, facebook.com/empowerment.resources and instagram.com/empowermentJAX.
Are you hungry for authentic Caribbean food like jerk chicken, oxtail, red snapper, shrimp, tofu, and rasta pasta? Well, find your way over to Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock in downtown Atlanta.
Them belly full, but we hungry.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, open daily from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. And on Friday and Saturday, we're open till 4 a.m. Come to Mango's and put some spice in your life.
So we've got a good thing going.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock in downtown Atlanta. For more info or directions, call 404-698-3992 or log on to mangoscaribbeanrestaurant.com. For instant coupons, text MANGOS to 313131.
Tell your mama hungry, papa hungry, brother hungry.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant. Authentic Caribbean cuisines.
Open up the door, tell your mama hungry.
The human voice has always connected audiences with experiences. Major brands all across America have trusted Kever's voice time and time again. Conversational, powerhouse, intelligent, and sincere. That's the voice you need for your creative marketing process. KEAVERSVOICE.com. Kever's Voice, Kever's Voice, KeversVoice.com. Always on, all the time.
From novice to aficionado, find yourself here. High quality cigars plus personal customer service. Slow Burn is Waco's only mobile cigar lounge, featuring a meticulous, curated collection of premium cigars. Visit our website, www.slowburnwaco.com. That's www.slowburnwaco.com.
Press the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they want to loud, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Ville with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Time to turn the page and we'll go to the men mid-majors in week number 5. We have a team that dropped out, so we do have some changes here. So see what Charles thinks in terms of what is taking place in week number 5 at the mid-major level. See if there's any change at the top. Maybe that's a little bit of a hint. Receiving votes this week, though, is a gluttony of teams. Starting with Savannah State Tigers sit at 15-7, 13-5, 24 points. Behind them, Winston-Salem State Rams sit at 16-5, 23 points. Miles Golden Bears follow up at 17-6, 13-5 with 13 points. And then holding up the back end of those 4 teams receiving votes, none other than Tuskegee Golden Tigers sit at 17-7, 12-5. Lets you know how tough the poll rankings are when you had that great game that you saw between Tuskegee and Miles, and they can't even get in the top 5. We did have a team that fell out this week. That out of the SIAC, Savannah State Tigers 15-7, 13-5, while they still are at the top of the Eastern Division of the SIAC. They had a tough loss this last weekend, and it pushed them out. As we get into the top 5 programs, let's go to number 5. At number 5, we have Claflin Panthers jumped into the top 5 after a big week, finishing at 7-4, 8-4 as they rolled the dice, 43 points out of the CIAA, which means that you'll have a matchup between Winston-Salem State and now top 5 program in Claflin Panthers just coming up on the other side, as you have a little under 2 minutes left in the game currently being played by Winston-Salem State Claflin, where the women are leading Claflin 78-43 for the Rams. Let's get back into it at number 4. At number 4, you have Philander Smith Panthers, 18-3, 8-2, playing some really good basketball. They move up a spot from last week with 53 points as they continue to roll. Bringing us to number 3. At number 3 this week is none other than the Virginia Union Panthers. They add a first place vote this weekend. They stay at number 3, but they do add that vote. 19-5, 9-3, 61 points. So they shrink the lead, getting into number 2. As we get into the number 2 poll rankings, a little change here. Langston Lions dropped number 1 spot. They have a loss. They have a lot of injuries. They're still one of the best teams out there. And if they can get healthy, they're going to make a deep run in the NIA tournament. But the way the poll rankings do it, you lost, you got to pay the cost. Second loss over the last 2.5 weeks, if you would. They dropped check this out, 22-2. Yeah, they're still playing some good basketball. 16-2 overall. They have 2 first place votes. So some folks do still think they should be number 1, but not enough as they fall from the number 1 spot for 74 points this weekend. Bring us to the new number 1. You have none other than Tougaloo Bulldogs out of Mississippi, 22-1, 10-0 in the conference rate, 5 first place votes, 79 points. Preacher ranked number 2. Another NIA program getting it done. Man, can you think about a matchup in the NIA tournament that features Langston and Tougaloo? Tougaloo is playing some really good basketball. As I said, this is a week-to-week poll. So while Tougaloo, some people will argue in terms of the competition they played, they've done what they're supposed to do in terms of victories. Their only 2 losses are against non-NAA programs. So they're actually undefeated in NAA play, as gentlemen talked about on HBCU Nightly and shouted that out, which was some great information in terms of what that looks like. And that was William Payne, coach out there getting it done, giving his top 5 NIA programs. So he had Langston at number 1 still and Tougaloo at number 2, but he gave a lot of credit to both. I see it a little differently in terms of the poll rankings and the voters, none other than Tougaloo Bulldogs. So I want to hear what your thoughts on this. 3 of the 5 teams in the top 5 for the men's are from the NAIA. 2 of them from the Gulf Coast Athletic Conference.
Yeah.
In terms of what's going on. So if nothing else, there's certainly some good basketball being played in the Gulf Coast Athletic Conference, particularly on the men's side. Not to say anything about SIAC. We know what they do in the CIAA, but some of that is because they beat each other up. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out when you get the NCAA bid or NAA bid, who will go the furthest, which may have an indication of where teams fall at the end. But in this week, shout out goes to Tougaloo Bulldogs as they move to number 1 in rankings in week number 5. Charles, what are your thoughts?
Let's talk about the strength of the NAIA. You talk about Tougaloo moving into the number 1 slot, 22-1, and then for Philander Smith, as great as they're playing basketball, they're looking up at Tougaloo. And keep this in mind, Doc, the GCAC tournament will be in Jackson there on the campus of Tougaloo. So that's going to be huge when you take a look at that conference championship. But what jumps out for me with this top 5 poll, you have the top 2 teams in the SIAC East, top 2 teams in the SIAC West. They're locked out. They're locked out of the top 5. We're talking about Benedict at 13-5, Savannah State at 13-5. Good records, 15-9, 15-7, respectively overall. They're still locked out of that top 5. You're talking about Virginia Union playing some great basketball. They're looking up at the NAIA program with regards to Tougaloo. So that's a good poll.
That being said, I appreciate it. With that being said, same question I asked you on the women's side. Is it the same? Or does it change up a little bit for you when you look at it in terms of the lenses of men's basketball when you compare NCAA Division II and the NAIA program? Obviously, when I told you about William Payne, some of the things he talked about the NAIA, he talked about Langston. As you know, we followed last year when he was over there at Talladega and made a run to the NAIA final, losing to a eventual champion that was out of his conference, where they had the 4 losses. Their only 4 losses all season was to the same team that ultimately won the championship. One thing about that team that I didn't realize, and I was digging in it, that coach did not play his best player in terms of his leading scorer in that matchup. Some personal discipline things, just didn't like the way things were going, so he sat him out. You don't see that much in the championship game when you just talk about something personal. But also with that being said, he talked about like Langston and Talladega last year, how solid they were. They actually had 9 Division I players on that team.
Yeah,
we know there was a lot
the
of
level of
Division I
talent,
players, but I didn't quite know the 9. With that saying, you do see some at the Division II, but it seemed like you've seen some of these coaches able to get some really good talent in their programs. What are you saying the difference is between NIA, NCAA Division II on the men's program?
I think you touched on it. It's the level of talent. And maybe the precursor to this season was the fact that we go all the way back to November. Tougaloo knocked off Jackson State in, what was deemed, a scrimmage game, preseason game, whatever the case might be. But it probably should have given you a look-see into the strength of that program's specifically going into this season. So for them to be number 1 at this point in the season, for them to be 22-1, might not be as much of a surprise. But I tell you what, these NAIA programs, they're holding their own, and they're locking out some pretty doggone good basketball programs in terms of your top 5.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Look a little deeper in terms of that. Are there any key matchups between any of these teams, or just in general, somebody that you're looking at that you're saying, regarding Langston with the injuries, do you see them being able to get it together to close out the season strong, I should say, or anybody, the CIAA, give the edge to Claflin to find a way to get it right, or Winston-Salem State? That's why I'm loving this matchup tonight. To give you some indication.
Yeah, I was about to say that's going to be a fun matchup tonight.
That looks like.
Fun matchup tonight with Winston-Salem State and Claflin, but Virginia Union, traditionally a strong basketball program. Definitely taking a look at them going down the stretch. They've won 7 in a row now. But what I think we touched on a little bit earlier with regards to that GCAC tournament, some matchups that I'm really looking forward to. Anytime for Landon Smith and Tougaloo get together now, you talk about 2 top 5 programs within the poll. They're going to fight it out for supremacy and going forward. And then you talk about Langston with the injuries, for them to continue to be chugging along. That speaks a lot about their coaching and their program.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Let's go in. Next break, we'll come back on the other side. We'll talk about some key matchups. We'll take a deep dive forward. We'll look at the NAIA, NCAA, and we'll go in both Division II and 1 this weekend, as you have some key matchups. So I want to see what Charles thinks on the other side. We'll talk about some of the big games that you need to keep your eyes on this weekend. We'll talk about where to go in terms of HBCU Go matchups. They'll have Saturday games and Monday games, so we give you an update of what that looks like. We'll come back on the other side and give you just a little more about the HBCU basketball season. Things are going strong, looking up. Should be interesting as we're getting close. Remember, in just 2 weeks, you have the CIAA basketball, and then a week after that, when I say basketball, I'm talking about the basketball tournament. Then a week after that, you have the SIAC. Following the week after that, you get into that MEAG and SWAC. So things are closing up, and some places are getting tighter. Some other places get spread. But it'll be fascinating as we go down the stretch, just to see what happens and who's hot and who's not. Stick with us. We'll be right back after this last break.
Shop Velvet Online Women's Boutique to spice up your closet with trendy, unique looks. We have fashionable and chic looks at very affordable prices. Velvet Boutique offers free shipping all year long on all orders. Shop online at www.melvetboutique.com. That's www.melvetboutique.com. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Instagram. Shop Velvet Online Women's Boutique.
From novice to aficionado.
Compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna loud, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Charles Bishop as we give you the breakdown. Let's get into some of our independent programs. We have an old rivalry matchup here on one side, but let me give you the score here first. We got Tennessee State. They're at home, but they're trailing to Southeast Missouri State 50-39 with 6:10 left in the third quarter. You got Tennessee State that comes in at 8-14. They've been struggling on the women's side this year. Southeast Missouri State is coming in at 9-14. In terms of some of the key players in this matchup, Tennessee State is getting the bulk of their scoring from Haynes Overton, Erica, that has scored 13 points in the game thus far, as trying to hold it in and put in the work. But she's the only player in double digits to let you know in some ways how Tennessee State Tigers are struggling in terms of that matchup as they get into the midpoint of the third quarter there. In another matchup that is fascinating, Hampton is looking to see if they can do an upset of A&T, who are up 53-48 with 4:55 in the fourth. This game was close the last time they kind of played there, but A&T was able to get it done. Obviously, A&T comes in there at 15-7. They're leading the Colonial, so this would be tough in terms of if they can't find a way to come back, particularly being at home, getting a loss.
Be a huge upset.
Hampton,
Yeah.
53-48. Talk a little bit about in terms of these matchups on the women's side of how it's going on, just your general thought process in terms of those scores. Any indication with A&T and Hampton, you can focus a little more on that because that's the major one. If Hampton is able to pull off that upset.
Yeah, the question becomes, what happened to A&T if Hampton is able to pull off that upset? That's huge coming into to A&T and trying to get that W. So keeping an eye on that one going forward. But you take a look at some matchups this weekend that are intriguing to me. Definitely, if you take a look at the SWAC Prairie View going to Southern this weekend, that should be one that I'm going to definitely keep my eye on. I think anytime a top team such as Jackson State goes on the road and gets into a hostile environment, it'll be interesting at least to see what happens. We know Jackson State has been playing lights out basketball. Nobody's been even relatively close to them, but it's always interesting to see what happens when you go on the road, get into a hostile environment, and they go to Florida this weekend, take on Florida A&M. Two teams that are very much improved this season.
Good points when you talk about some of those key matchups. What's interesting to me with the Prairie View matchup, this is one of the ones where you got to look at it in terms of the men's and women's game. For different reasons there. Women are fighting it out, and they're in the middle. So you're talking about seedings. Can you find a way to push to the second and third seed? Certainly want to get into that fourth seed. So you're playing teams at the bottom of the conference, and you got everybody kind of stacked in the middle. On the men's side, you're talking about Prairie View, along with a couple other teams where they're fighting to make sure they stay in that top 8 to get in there. Southern wants to rectify the fact that they just on a 2-game losing streak. They want to bounce back and see if they can find a way to climb back in their first place. They do have the head-to-head matchup at Alcorn. They only play once. So if they can find a way to maintain it and Alcorn takes another loss, they at least have the number 1 seed. They'll have to share the regular season championship, but they'll have the number 1 seed. So to me, that Prairie View is something to keep your eyes on in terms of what that looks like when you talk a little bit about those key matchups on that side of things. The other side of it in terms of that means you have Texas Southern playing Alcorn, and similar type of thing. They're talking about trying to figure out how do they get some momentum to at least come up in that 8 seed. Maybe they're playing some good basketball at the end. Can they make a run in the tournament? Or is this going to be that weird year where you have a team
this could be the dagger
to finish in a way that they won't even make the top 8 in terms of the tournament? Talk a little bit about your thoughts in terms of the struggle of Texas Southern this year, because you had a chance to kind of watch them here and there being in the arena.
Yeah, I think that's been the biggest surprise, just the inconsistency with regards to Texas Southern, because one of the things that you always are able to take a look at with Texas Southern is they score. They never have an issue with regards to scoring the basketball, and I've been somewhat surprised that they will have these lulls this season, where there's been injuries that have taken place on the team. I know they've had some injuries with regards to point guard position, but they get into some ruts, and then they can't get stops. And that's the thing that's been really, really surprising watching Texas Southern this past season in terms of not being able to hold off teams when they go on these 6-0, 8-0 runs. And they kind of collectively just kind of get into this rut. So that's been something that has, really caught my eye with regards to watching this Texas Southern basketball team. They just haven't been as sharp as we are used to watching.
Yeah, and I was thinking about the old road trips where you have Southern and Alcorn, but obviously now you go state to state, so it's actually Grambling. But it's playing really good basketball, which makes it even tougher in a lot of ways from Alcorn versus that in those matchups. So fascinating what sees going on there. You have Jackson at FAMU, Alcorn at Bethune-Cookman, Alabama State, Arkansas Pine Bluff, Texas Southern and Grambling, Prairie View Southern, Alabama at Mississippi Valley State. That's Saturday matchups. On Monday, you know it flips. So that means you have Alabama A&M at Pine Bluff, Jackson State at Bethune-Cookman, Alcorn State at FAMU, Alabama State at Mississippi Valley, Texas Southern at Southern. I laid that all out. I want to stick with the men for a minute here. You know, you always talk about that Monday action. Do you see any game on Monday that people need to watch out for in terms of the proverbial upset? Or do you see something actually happen on Saturday with some of those key matchups? If I had to tell you, I asked you, what is the game that you want to keep your eyes on in terms of that upset, particularly on those Mondays where it always gets fun?
Be careful and watch out for Alcorn at Florida A&M on Monday. That one is very intriguing. I've looked at some things with regards to Florida A&M. They have a couple of guys that can flat score the basketball. They play good defense. That's one that is very intriguing. And Doc, we've talked about the parity within this league. There isn't that big a separator from the teams that are 8-3 and 6-5. So I would say Florida A&M is definitely that second tier sort of team that has the ability, like we saw this past weekend, to knock off a team that is in the top tier, or especially with regards to those top 1, 2, or 3 teams. Talking about Alcorn, Southern, and Grambling.
Yes. Let's turn it on the other side and go back to those independents. We switched over and talked a little bit about the men. We gave you some updates in terms on the women's side. As we look at it, Tennessee State is in a unique position. I kind of discussed this a little earlier. They won 3 straight, so they're playing relatively good basketball. So this is a big game for them tonight. Obviously, just like you heard with the women, they play Southeast Missouri State. And Southeast Missouri State is sitting in the second spot with 8-4 record. They're 1 game behind Morehead that leads the OVC. And so that's who they play. And they have them at home with Tennessee State sitting at 6-6 in the conference, obviously 14-11 overall, as you saw the record. This is a chance. Do you think Tennessee State may have a little bit of momentum? Can they get this game at home? They've been scoring well. The guards are playing well, getting some nice post plays, moving the ball, playing a little better on the defensive side of the ball. What are your thoughts in terms of Tennessee State Tigers? Is that just a thought process of who they were playing of late? Or have they changed things around and kind of rebounded for how they started the season, which was red hot? Can they make a move in this conference play? I told you what they see on tonight, and so I'm interested in kind of keeping my eyes and watching that. But not only that, then they turn around on Saturday, and they got Tennessee Tech. Game at home as well. Tennessee Tech, in terms of the standings, Tennessee Tech sits at 7-5, along with SIUE at Southern Illinois, Evansville at 7-5, as well as UT Martin. So you see it's a lot of teams not too far away. 3 games separate a team, Tennessee State, from first place. But they have a huge weekend, and I think we need to keep our eyes on, especially with them coming off 3 victories. Talk about Tennessee State. What do you see? What you want to keep your eyes on, and why that matchup should be intriguing for many of us?
Well, I've been curious in terms of what the turnaround has been with regards to Tennessee State. You touched on it with regards to the guard play, and we started to see, especially guard play around this time of the year, guys tend to tighten it up with regards to assist to turnover ratio. That's one of the things I really kind of pay attention towards as we get toward February. We start chugging along towards conference play, where a lot of those mistakes that you made in the early part of January, mid-January, those things start to get cleaned up around this time of year. So I'm curious as to if that has been part of Tennessee State's turnaround. Huge weekend this upcoming weekend with regards to the 2 teams that they play, but has the guard play changed enough to where they can start stringing some victories together?
Yeah, I'm interested to see what they're going to do tonight and then on Saturday. They have a chance to really make a statement. We'll come back next week and give you some indication of just what they did. With that being said, let's go over here to Colonial give you an update in terms of what that looks like on the women's side and score. Before we do that, you had A&T defeating Elon. It was funny because you got a lot of folks that were laughing as Elon came out and talked about that they are rivals to North Carolina A&T. A lot of the Aggies fans were kind of, yeah, exactly, took back and laughing at that, especially when they upset the women's side. Well, the men got a little payback. They won last night 60-61. But I talk about that more because A&T goes on the road to Stony Brook. A&T sits in the middle of the league, sitting at 7-5, 7-6. They're 4 games back in terms of what that looks like as College of Charleston sits at 11-2. They were red hot. They've kind of fallen back. They're actually tied with Hofstra. And so A&T is 4 games back. I talk about this because we're getting ready for the playoffs. Well, the way the Colonial has it is the top 4 or 5 teams, because 13 teams, they get like a bye. You can slide into 4, you get like a double bye. So it is interesting in terms of A&T, not necessarily just how well they are, but can they slide up a spot or 2 to get that double bye? And you never know what happens in the tournament, particularly with Charleston cooling off. That was a top 25 team and started off red hot. They've fallen to 23-3. So they're still solid, but who knows? Maybe it can happen. Other side is Hampton. They really are struggling 2nd year in a row. And the Colonial sit at 6-19 overall, 3-9. Obviously, they lost against the rival Norfolk State this past weekend when we talked about 13,000 fans plus watching that. So it's interesting to see what's going on there. So give you an update. Hampton is pulling away with A&T. It's 58-50 with 155 in that game. So it's getting tight there. And Southeast Missouri is pulling away from Tennessee State, 57-44 with 3:10 left in the third. But in terms of the men's side of A&T, any thoughts there?
Let me go back and ask you a question in regards to sliding up a spot in that 4th spot. How significant is that? And you mentioned the term double bye. What exactly is happening when you talk about a double bye?
Yeah, if you remember a couple of years ago when the MEAC had like 13 teams themselves, 12 teams, your top seeds would actually get to wait essentially 2 games. When you get a double bye, they would jump all the way essentially to like the semifinals.
Okay.
In some case, you get the 1 bye, you jump into the quarterfinal. So they would have these opening round games similar to what you would talk about in the NCAA, where you have teams play each other, kind of play out, and then you get into those teams that earned it during the regular season. They get that 1-2 seed. So obviously you're playing the bottom seeds, but the fact that you can get closer to that quarterfinal, semifinal, that's always good. That means you only have to win 2 games, 3 games essentially to get into the tournament and win the championship. So if you can get that double bye and get into semifinals versus just getting a single bye and get into quarterfinals, they can go a long way towards to getting some leg rest, getting a chance to really scout from your coaches about who they will play in terms, because you get to watch those games obviously because you're there in the city with the tournament. So those are some things that make it interesting to me in terms of that. Let's get into it as we start to get ready to close up. Let's get into some of these MEAC games that you talked about. They're going to be fascinating this weekend with Maryland Eastern Shore as they are number 1 in the poll rankings. I'm fascinated to see what that looks like. They take on Norfolk State. Check out the record of these teams. You know, we talk about teams coming in there. Maryland Eastern Shore is sitting at 14-8 overall. Norfolk State is 16-7. As I told you, big weekend this past weekend as they got it done against Hampton. But in terms of the standings, you have Maryland Eastern Shore sitting at 6-1 in the conference. They're tied with Howard at 6-1 as well. But Norfolk State is right behind them, sitting at 5-2. You talk about teams playing well. Maryland Eastern Shore, the Hawks, they've won 7 straight games. They lost their first conference game, but they've won and just streaking along. But you have Howard that sits at 6 wins themselves. Norfolk State, as soon as you want to kind of bury them, put the dirt on it, they've won 3 straight and they're playing well themselves. So I'm fascinated with the matchups. It doesn't just stop on Saturday where you have Norfolk State at Maryland Eastern Shore. Maryland Eastern Shore has not lost at home, so that's something to keep your mind on. Then you go into Monday, you have Maryland Eastern Shore at Howard. So they got to get a good one on Saturday at home, then they hit the road Monday, go down to D.C. What are your thoughts in terms of these key matchups in the MEAC as things are shaping up?
Huge weekend for Maryland Eastern Shore. They get to legitimize where they are with regards to the standings. Can they protect home court with the Spartans coming in? And then the other hot team, the other really hot team in the MEAC, they go to Howard, go to Bird Gymnasium. Let's see what the Hawks can do this weekend. They get the stamp of approval. They go through this little gauntlet this weekend in terms of being that team to beat in the MEAC.
Oh boy. 52 as we come to close out the show. So I'm gonna let y'all get a chance to follow it up. Hampton is holding on. 47 seconds left. This one is going down. It should be interesting to see what takes place there. Charles, I want to say thanks, giving us some great insight to some of these matchups to keep your eyes on, giving those poll rankings. It's time for us to bid it adieu and follow up with you all next week as we got some good basketball taking place. Let me give you the latest in terms of your HBCU Go in terms of what to watch this weekend, the 11th and the 13th. Saturday, 12:30 and 3 o'clock, you have Alabama State at Arkansas Pine Bluff on HBCU Go. February the 13th, you have Texas Southern at Southern. Those are both double headers in terms of money. That'll be 5:30 and 8 o'clock, just to give you some indication there with HBCU Go. Was trying to hold on just a little bit to see if I can give you some updates. 58 to 52, 41 seconds. Foul on Nia Willis as Hampton is going to the free throw line to see if they can ice it there to get it done in terms of what that looks like. Key matchups in terms of those games. Told you what to watch out on the MEAC. Do not have any of them listed as television games for Saturday and Sunday. So those are things, make sure you keep on your HBCU Go just to get it going on that side of the house. On Monday, you have a gauntlet of the 6 games, neither one of them on ESPN this weekend. So just keep things going. That'll do it for us. Just thank you for listening to Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Make sure you share our podcast with your friends and colleagues. I am Dr. Kenyatta, the Dean of HBCU Sports, coming from inside the lab in the College of HBCU Sports with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Again, we want to thank you for listening to Dr. Bill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop every Tuesday and Thursday at 6 o'clock Central Standard Time. We will discuss the latest and greatest in terms of the HBCU news in the lab. Follow me, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. That's DrKenyatta, DrKenyatta, Inside the HBCU Sports Lab 1 on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube on Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Dream big. Continue to move forward. We will talk with you soon. Charles?
Of course.
Lecture. Roy?
Dismissed.